Not only is this book just an overall difficult book to read, not only is this book just an overall... Hey everyone, my name is Ryan and I'm back with another video. Today we're going to be talking about In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. Before I get into it, this book does have some pretty heavy trigger warnings for domestic abuse, emotional abuse, gaslighting, and hints of physical abuse, especially in a sapphic relationship. So if you are sensitive to any of those things, I would suggest staying away from this book because this book does go into very graphic detail with those. This video is going to be a little bit different just because I wouldn't necessarily consider this video a review. This book is a memoir and it covers some very traumatic, heavy topics that this author has gone through, and I don't feel right about sitting here and being like and reviewing the book normally, just because how do you just review the events of someone's life, especially when talking about trauma and just things that are painful for people to write about and to read about, that just reviewing it doesn't necessarily sit right with me. But I still want to talk about it because I think this book is very important and has a lot of very important things to say, and I can't stop thinking about it. So I wanted to tell all of you about this book so then you can read it too. Like I said before, this book is a memoir talking about the traumatic experience that this author had in an abusive sapphic relationship. Over the course of the book, this author refers to the relationship or the place where it happened as the dream house. And we get the story in these little vignettes where the author is setting up parts of the dream house using things like metaphors or critical analyses of media or just other little tidbits of insight into what the experience was like to build up the dream house that she's talking about. I thought the way her story was told was so interesting because not only do we get it told in these little vignettes where we get to see this dream house being built up piece by piece, a lot of the writing is also done in second person. And I thought that was a very interesting choice because it makes the reading experience very intimate. Instead of her just telling the story of, you know, one day I did this and this happened to me, it's you did this, you were doing this when she did this to you. And it feels as though these things are happening to you yourself as the reader, and it's so intimate and it's such a painful reading experience. And even though it's a short book, I couldn't read large chunks of it at once just because it was so hard to read, but I thought that that was fantastically done. And obviously it's supposed to be hard to read. I'm not saying that as like a drawback or anything. I think it definitely adds to the book, and it's just an element of the book that added another level of connection with me and just made me fall that much deeper into it and feel all of this pain that the author was going through. Not only is this book just an overall difficult book to read, I do think it's a book that's very necessary. This book makes a lot of broader conversations about the experience of queer abuse and abuse in sapphic relationships and women who are abusive and how society just pretends that these things don't exist. We get a lot of discussions on how hard it was for her to leave this relationship, even though she knew how unhealthy it was. She goes very deep into the idea that her abuser was very calculated, very manipulative, from the physical actions to the things that she would say to the gaslighting and the emotional abuse that this woman put her through. But she makes it very clear that this woman wasn't always that way, so it blindsided her when this relationship started to turn this way. We get a lot of discussions on how society as a whole looks at domestic abuse and how media influences that. We get an analysis of movies and other media that have contributed to how culture sees abuse and how she finds herself in the characters of these movies. We get a lot of discussions on queer history and lesbian and sapphic history, and how that itself has been brushed aside because it's not considered mainstream, and how people pretend that it doesn't exist, and how hard it is for queer people to find themselves in history because it's been pushed away. We get a lot of discussions on how she felt she had to hide because she felt like she had to be this good face to represent a queer relationship, because people in society don't think that queer relationships can be unhappy, or that divorce can happen, or that they can be abusive, and how harmful that is because it meant that she had to hide her experiences. And even more, she just felt like she was letting the queer community down because of something that wasn't her fault. Overall, this was such a hard read, but there's so much to gain from it, and if you can stomach it, I highly recommend it, just because this book is so well written and the experience of reading this is so personal. This book has a lot of really good, important, necessary things to say, and I could not recommend it more. If you can stomach it, I think you should absolutely read it, and I think this book will mean a lot to a lot of people. I feel weird putting a numerical value on the rating of this book, like I said before, just because it's so personal and so traumatic, but I can't see giving this book anything less than 5 stars. I think that's absolutely deserved, and I think you should all read it. But yeah, so that's it for the video. I didn't really want to review it or anything, but I did still want to talk about it, so I tried to do the best that I could. But that's all I have for you today. Hopefully I'll see you again with another video soon, and please check this book out. I will have the Goodreads linked in the description for this book. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to comment, and don't forget to do something good for yourself today. Bye!